arrived at the barracks early in the morning, attempting a radically new approach to avoid further public backlash. Instead of his usual roaring wake-up call, he walked through the room speaking softly, pleasantly encouraging the men to rise and shine. When he reached Gomer's bunk, he gently shook him awake at 5:30 in the morning. Gomer opened his eyes, confused by the gentle tone, and asked why the sergeant had not shouted as usual. Sergeant Carter forced a wide, rigid smile onto his face, prompting Gomer to observe that his lips were spreading out in a very strange way. Sergeant Carter explained through gritted teeth that he was smiling, asking if Gomer had ever seen anyone smile before. Gomer admitted he had, but noted that it looked rather funny coming from him. Sergeant Carter gathered the men outside and instructed them to line up nicely, exercising extreme patience even when Gomer stumbled because he could not find his belt. Corporal Boyle pulled Carter aside, asking what was behind the sudden change in personality. Sergeant Carter admitted that after a stern talking to from the colonel, he realized he needed to project a soft, warm image to counter whatever Ampey might say on television that night, hoping to save his sergeant's stripes. Later that afternoon, Ampey returned to the base to see Gomer during an obstacle course training exercise. Sergeant Carter greeted her with exaggerated politeness, welcoming her aboard and inviting her to watch the training. As Gomer was low-crawling through the dirt, he noticed Ampey and waved enthusiastically. In his excitement, he made a blunder with a practice grenade, causing Sergeant Carter to completely lose his cool. Carter erupted into his signature tirade, calling Gomer a numbskull and a lame brain, shouting at the top of his lungs. Ampey watched the outburst, dismayed to see the sergeant shouting at the poor boy once again. Sergeant Carter tried to catch himself and claim he was speaking kindly, but the slip-up was obvious. He finally snapped, admitting that he was not a soft sergeant and never would be, promising Gomer a long evening of washing dishes and doing push-ups. That evening, the Marines gathered around a television set in the rec room to watch Johnny Clark's show. Sergeant Carter stood nervously at the back of the room as Johnny Clark introduced Miss B. Taylor from Mayberry. On screen, Johnny asked Ampey to elaborate on her complaints regarding the unreasonable and tyrannical Sergeant Carter. To everyone's surprise, Ampey explained that while she had initially viewed the sergeant as an ill-tempered tyrant, her subsequent conversation with Gomer had completely changed her perspective. She explained to the viewing audience that she had been judging the military from a soft civilian point of view. Gomer had helped her understand that Sergeant Carter's shouting, sand moving, and push-ups were not done out of malice, but out of a deep dedication to turning young men into proper, disciplined Marines. She concluded that without Sergeant Carter's strict discipline, the base would simply be filled with a platoon of knuckleheads. The rec room erupted in cheers as the Marines congratulated Sergeant Carter, noting that Ampey had turned him into a hero on live television. Sergeant Carter let out a massive sigh of relief, deeply touched and relieved that his stripes were safe. The next morning, Ampey visited the base one last time before catching her bus to Fresno. She met with Sergeant Carter in his office to say goodbye. She thanked him for his service and expressed her respect for his difficult job. However, as she looked around his office, her eyes landed on the dusty, grimy windows. She turned to Gomer and asked if he could run to the mess hall and grab some vinegar before her bus arrived, insisting she still had an hour and a half to show them how to properly clean those windows so they would truly shine. Sergeant Carter stared in disbelief, realized there was no stopping her, and could only shake his head as Ampey took charge once again. Gomer-Pyle U-S-M-C, starring Jim Nabors as Gomer-Pyle, also starring Frank Sutton as Sergeant Carter. "Hey, Pyle, you got a visitor over in the rec room." "A visitor? To see me?" "Yeah, but don't get too excited. She's the motherly type." "The motherly type? I wonder who that could be." "Hey, May. Gomer." "Well, I did something." "Gomer, for land's sakes, look at you." "Why? I wouldn't know you if I saw you on the street right now." It's true. You're a different person." When you left Mayberry, you were a frail, scrawny thing. But look at you now. Gomer-Pyle, you're actually handsome. I'm Gomer, ain't they? Yes, you are. Well, you look mighty good yourself. This is just wonderful. Come on over here, Mr. Hale. What in the world are you doing here? Well, I'm on my way to Fresno. You remember my little niece, Judy May Olander? Uh-huh. Well, she's getting married. You don't say. Yes, and a good catch, too. The young fellow is a butcher down at the supermarket. You know the kind of money they make. Of course. He's supposed to be a lovely person, too. Wasn't that nice? Of course. At first I wasn't going to go, but Andy just insisted. He said I needed a vacation from my household chores. Uh-huh. So I thought I would make a vacation, and I'd come and see you, too. Well, I'm sure glad you did. This is just wonderful. But tell me, how's everybody in Mayberry? Andy and Opie and the whole gang? Just fine, and I've got a lot of pictures. Gomer, would you have a little time? I thought maybe we could go to town. We could have dinner, and then have a nice, long talk. Well, I sure would like to, Aunt Bee, but I'm afraid I can't. You see, all the fellas are on pass, and I've got the barracks duty. Well, maybe I could go with you. We can talk while you do your barracks duties. Well, I don't suppose there'd be any harm in it. Today's Sunday, and there won't be anybody there. Yeah, I guess you could. Good, good. Oh, Gomer, I just can't get over how handsome you are. Well, so this is where you live. Yes, ma'am, and this is my bunk right here, and right next to it, my locker. Is that all the space you have? Gomer, I thought you'd have a room of your own by now. Oh, no, ma'am, you've got to be a lot higher up than me for that. Oh, well, there's not much privacy, is there? No, ma'am, but it's friendly. It was hard for me to get used to at first, sharing a bedroom with so many other fellers. But now I just don't think I can sleep in a room by myself anymore. Well, I guess people can get used to anything. Bill, now what duties do you have to do? Well, I got to mop the floor and dust the lockers and wash the windows and just generally spruce things up. Gomer, that's housework. Yes, ma'am, I guess you could call it that. You mean you do that all by yourself? No, ma'am, usually the fellas do their own, but like I said, they're out on pies, and I didn't have any other plans, so I'm doing it for them. You mean the boys have to do their own housework, along with all the marching and drilling and things? Well, yes, ma'am, it's all part of being a Marine. Well, for land's sakes, how long has this been going on? About 200 years, I guess. Well, you'd think they'd spend a few extra dollars and get you boys a maid. Oh, I ain't be. Listen, you come over here and sit down on the bunk, and we can visit while I mop. What? Certainly not. You think I'm going to sit there and watch you do housework? I should say not. I'm going to help you. But I ain't be. You can't do that. Gorma, don't argue. Get me a jacket or a sweater I can put over this dress, and something for my hair, if you can find it, and then give me a mop. But I ain't be. Gorma, don't argue. Just do as I say. You really shouldn't be doing this. I ain't be. You know, I just don't understand it. Millions and millions in taxes. And they won't spend a few extra dollars and have a woman come in and straighten up. Mavis Pearl could come in here on a Thursday and for $8 do the whole place. I really don't think it's the money. I ain't be. Well, then what is it? Well, it's just part of being a Marine. Doing housework is part of being a Marine? Well, that's the way they figure. Well, they could make a few changes, if you ask me. Have a woman come in just once or twice a week, and you'd see a big difference. Those windows could use some curtains, you know. Your pictures wouldn't hurt either. Well, some fellas have pictures, but they keep them on the insides of their locker. Oh, those are not the kind of pictures I meant. I'd better get back to my windows. Gorma, I don't like to criticize, but you're not getting those windows as clean as you should. What are you using there? Well, just the regular window cleaner that they give us. Well, what you really need is vinegar. Vinegar? With a little water, that's what I use. You wouldn't happen to have any, would you? No, ma'am, but I suppose